We are talking the Boonies, not the Goonies. No, the Boonies. This one is directed by Lance Parkin, who also co-wrote the movie along with Matt Schultz, who plays our main character of Aaran in this movie. So what is the story? Like I've said, this is a very similar movie to Wrong Turn. We essentially have a group of friends decide they're going to go camping in the woods. And it's for one of their kind of bachelor parties, or stag do's as it's known here in the UK. So they decide they're going to go in the woods, camping. We've also got a local couple who also are in the woods for a reason. And both of these parties come afoul of this family of inbred cannibals. Now that's really as far as I need to go with the plot synopsis, because any more will kind of reveal too much about the kind of the scant plot, but you can get the idea maybe what will happen. So first of all, let me talk about what maybe worked in this movie. I feel the movie is shot fairly proficiently. The thing that the camera work here on a technical level was pretty good. I've seen a lot of these kind of lower budget films where they kind of like have, they substitute kind of, scenes that are meant to take place and then like they kind of darken scenes obviously shot in the day, things like this. I gotta say, this movie I felt was shot relatively well, some pretty good editing. So on a technical side here, it was a proficiently made film for a kind of a low budget and straight to VOD, DVD kind of horror movie. So technical, all good. I think there are some reasonable gore effects here. For a kind of a low budget movies. There's a couple of instances here where I felt some of the kills that we see on screen do come across as being quite brutal on screen. And I think it's a good use of things like sound effects to kind of amp that up, and some practical gore as well, as I think is done to a kind of a good standard. Our group of protagonists, I feel, they all have very strong characteristics, if that makes sense. So they never seem particularly bland in regards to kind of actual character traits and things like that. They all seem kind of quite different and kind of memorable in their kind of their own ways. And like I said, if you like a kind of a cabin in the woods with cannibals, Wrong Turn style movie, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that kind of thing, this movie I would imagine would kind of please some of those fans who are itching for kind of more of the same. But let's talk about what doesn't work. It's more of the same. As I've just said, so this movie doesn't really have anything original to offer the genre. It's just another kind of telling of hillbillies, inbreds, whatever you want to call them, living in the woods, preying on whoever kind of walks past and things like that. There's no real new story elements here whatsoever. So no points for originality. I have to say, I think the acting is at best a mixed bag. I think some of the performances here are on the weaker side. Let me just say that. Some fare a little better than others. But there are some performances that are fairly weak. Our main protagonist, Aaran, who's actually played by the co-writer of the movie, for some reason they've written him to be particularly a likeable character. He's self-serving, he's constantly complaining, and I think the idea here is that he's meant to show that he's out of his element, and I understand that. But the problem is, in the meantime, they have given him no real redeeming qualities, and thus does not make a particularly, a leading man that you kind of want to root for, because ultimately he is the most unlikable character out of our group of protagonists. So it's an odd decision to really. He doesn't even have a redemptive arc, if I'm completely honest. He's just like self-pitying, complaining through the whole movie. An incredibly odd decision, I must say. Let me move on to the actual antagonist, these kind of cannibal family themselves. I gotta say, this was maybe the weakest element of the movie. We've seen kind of weird, kind of inbred mutants and things like this from films like Wrong Turn, Hills Have Eyes, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, as I've mentioned. There's nothing really done with these guys, and I've got to be honest with you, they really don't look like people who are living in the woods. I was noticing all of their clothes were quite sort of clean, their boots didn't seem dirty, their clothes all seemed kind of like in good condition, clean, kind of quite modern haircuts. So they just kind of look like dudes, to be honest with you, apart from they're going, all the kind of the time. That's basically it. And then there's one who, they have these masks. Well, one has a mask, one just has a bandana. But again, it's overacting. Like, for example, this guy who's wearing the mask, to look creepy, he's constantly kind of like doing this with his eyes and kind of like making his eyes look odd. And it's just like, you're just making your eyes do, you know, opening your eyes really wide. In a situation, you just simply wouldn't be doing this, you know. It doesn't make sense in a narrative sense. So they're somewhat overacting and kind of overemphasizing some certain silliness in the movie. It's a little bit too long as well. It doesn't need to, it's not especially a long film, but I didn't think it needed to be, it could have been cut down by about 10 minutes, maybe 15, and I think it would be more of a punchy film. I just think it didn't need it, because there's very little plot in this film. The movie goes in exactly the direction you think it's going to go into. There's not really much else to it. So I think it could have been benefited from being slightly shorter, a little bit more punchier. It just maybe starts to wear out its welcome a little bit. There's scenes that I feel from peripheral characters that didn't need to be there. We have these other two guys, these kind of local people, and they are a character from them will be a main part of the movie, but there's a lot of time dealing with characters that are related to them, is the best way to describe it, that I didn't think needed to be there, to be honest. And again, that could have been a way to kind of trim down the film at some point. So, what do we think about this movie? I don't think this is necessarily a bad film. I think it's a serviceable kind of like Cannibals in the Woods movie. I have seen worse. I don't think it's, I would say it falls probably slightly below average without actually going into, you know, it's terrible, if that makes sense. Because I do think there's enough here. It's proficiently made to be somewhat entertaining, if not an original movie by any stretch of the imagination. And there's a reasonable kind of gore and kills and things like that I think fans of these particular kind of slashery type movies, Cannibals in the Woods, may still enjoy it, but it really doesn't do anything new, and there are some elements that I feel are missed opportunities. So that being said, I'll give it a 4 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment, and I shall look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.